With the first pick overall, the New Jersey Devils are proud to select from the U.S. program, Jack Hughes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Heads Up Hockey. It is your playoff edition. This is the first ever playoff edition here on Heads Up Hockey. And also, your New Jersey Devils are playing tonight against the New York Rangers at the Prudential Center. That's right. This is the third time since 2012. 2018 didn't really count much. That was barely any competition, but 2023, holy shnikes. Wow. I had to correct myself because, that second one at the Rock just didn't feel right. But this time around, we got a lot of guys that can really make some noise. And I know last night with Minnesota was very interesting. I will say this, if no one believes in Sasquatching, look at Matthew Dumba. That beautiful hit, clean shoulder, hard hitting, big, massive defenseman. If no one believes in playoff hockey like that, I don't know what you're thinking. That's not just my opinion, that's a belief. That's a belief in the desperation to win Lord Stanley's Cup. And the Devils have moved the needle many times. They've graduated from a draft lottery team, and they still have some really darn good prospects coming up the pipeline, whether it's a Simon Nemec or a Josh Philman or maybe a Gritzuk, or even recently they called up Tyler Bredin from the Prince George Cougars. They signed to an ELC, and his contract begins this offseason to play for the team in Utica. So the Devils have a lot of young blood coming in. Who knows if Tobias Wieland will be ready next season, but I can assure you this. At least you'll have Luke Hughes possibly playing in a game or a couple games versus the Rangers. And I put it in an article talking about how it is such a beautiful luxury for any playoff team to have a player of Luke Hughes' caliber. Plus, he already, eye test wise, skills wise, potential wise, he's just as good as his brother Quinn. He's poised, he's very maneuverable, he's agile, he's smart, he's got that heads up hockey IQ. I can't stress it enough that the Devils made it out like bandits. And in my honest opinion, although Owen Power was the consensus first overall pick, I still believe that the Buffalo Sabres missed out on a guy like Luke Hughes. They should have gone with Luke Hughes regardless. And I know because he's a September birthday, but he is like almost a year younger than Owen Power. And he develops a little bit better, and he's a scorer. So this is great. I mean, he can almost defend for himself. And look what he did against the Washington Capitals in freaking regulation and overtime. He got an assist, and then he got a game-winning goal. And he and his brother, Jack, how poetic is that? And when you have your brother, you play simple and similar game to each other, it makes it harder for your opponents to try and defend you. And also, when it's harder to even control a Brat or a Timo Meyer, it's going to make teams very weary. Like, who should I cover? Where is the puck going to go the next time around? And how am I going to interfere with this guy? And there's all these ifs, ands, and buts. And how are you going to execute? Now, with that being mentioned, the Devils have what they call house money. I believe in house money. And the Devils set a new bar in their franchise, going from what I said earlier in the episode, from a lottery team to a powerhouse team. And this team is going to attract a lot of great players from the drafts to even trades and free agency. Yes, the Devils will have to let a few guys go, but they're going to bring in better quality players. And I know Michael McLeod is a really good Sasquatch player, but he does score a little bit more, but he's not a goal scorer. He's an assist guy, and he plays a physical game. But I think there are other players better than him. And I still think that come game time, maybe we see Curtis Lazar playing in this kind of matchup where he's played for teams like Boston and uh, I think Calgary and Vancouver, and he's been in the playoffs before, minus a few other teams. But I will say this: the Devils have enough experience in the playoffs, and I know my buddy over at Pucks and Pitchforks, Matt Junio, freaks out. Oh, this is a different style of game. Sure, bro. Sure. Whatever. The Devils just have to play their game, just play more physical, play clean, and just keep the Rangers to the outside of the high danger scoring areas, just like they've been doing during the regular season. Just shut down Mika Zibanejad and Kreider just a little bit more, and you will be able to create more scoring chances for your own self. Now, it's been very refreshing to see a team like the Pittsburgh Penguins not make the playoffs and not see Malkin and Crosby. And I don't have anything against them. It's just that it was the same story in and out, and they were just getting older. Their goaltending wasn't, the same over the years. It wasn't like when they had Marc-Andre Fleury. So them and Washington, I mentioned this before, they eventually collapsed their way out. And that's what happens when you don't have enough young prospects. That's what happens when you don't have enough really good players that you upgrade to and you hold on to too many older core pieces. And it comes back to bite you. And that goes for any team. And teams like the Buffalo Sabres and the Ottawa Senators next year, if they add some significant pieces in the offseason and they draft and develop a few more great players and graduate a few, we could look at two New Jersey Devils like teams that could make some head spin a little bit more. And I think the league is going to get even more dynamic and more interesting. And just think about when Boston, when they have to move on from guys like a Bergeron or a Krejci. Eventually, contracts are going to add up. They're going to have to start drafting better and adding guys. And yes, I get that the Bruins are in the playoffs. They won the President's Trophy. But it's very, very, very astronomically rare that a President's Trophy team wins the Stanley Cup. And this might be the outlier year. But if they don't, then, mission failed. But I have Boston in minimum of 5 games winning it all versus the Florida Panthers. I just don't think Florida's much of a matchup come to the playoffs. I understand Matthew Tkachuk is, a cousin of Tom Fitzgerald, but I don't think Florida has enough grit and firepower to deal with Boston's greatness. They're just too solid up and down the middle. They got guys like DeBrusque who are just really tough players, and I just believe that they're better rounded. And if you look at the Western Conference, I still see the Avalanche winning in 6 games. They have the right roster to beat Seattle. I think Seattle wins 2 home games, but after that, it's a learning curve for Seattle. I have Seattle as my favorite West Coast team. I just don't think they're there yet. Winnipeg with Vegas. Winnipeg has had injuries, and I agree with my buddy Neil Villapiano of the Double State of Mind podcast. I get Connor Hellebuck might steal a few games, but it is a lot of pressure to play in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I will tell you that. A lot of hockey players who have no trade clauses don't want to go to most Canadian markets because of the pressure. And some can deal with it, some just can't. And some guys prefer playing in different markets, whether it's for tax purposes. I can't speak so much on the tax parts, but I can guarantee you it's definitely the media and the opposing fans getting on you. So that's just a few variables why players come and go, and Pierre-Luc Dubois might be one of those X factors that could easily hurt Winnipeg's chances versus Vegas. And Vegas has some really good pieces that been around the block. You just think about guys like William Karlsson who've been around. You have Logan Thompson, who's a young netminder, and they can certainly go through a few kinks in their armor, but they will find ways to make it work. I think LA beats Edmonton in 7 games, and the Oilers try to do everything they can. I still believe Connor McDavid will score a lot of goals in this series, but Stuart Skinner is just not there yet as a goalie. And Jonas Corposalo, I find, is a better goaltender than Stuart Skinner. But, it's hard when you try and remove the player from his former team, like Corposalo's old club, like my buddy Neil said. I agree with him until once you are fully integrated. So that's where I disagree with him fully on that. Now, Vitek Vanacek going up against Igor Shesterkin. Shesterkin has been hot lately. Vanacek's been getting hot lately. This season's been more pedestrian to me in my eyes for Igor Shesterkin. The Devils, early in the season, got into Shesterkin's head. And a lot of Devils fans were at that Devils away game at Madison Square Garden. They were actually heckling Shesterkin. And I'm not trying to push any other narrative. I'm just telling you how it was. And when these two fan bases meet, it is a hell of a lot crazy. And that's why you got to bring yourself some earbuds or noise cancelers. And by the way, I'm not being sponsored by a company, but if you do, it's probably because you got ANCs or noise canceling headphones or earbuds. Kind of like Beats under Apple or whatever brand you use to shut out other people. I can see that. And people just watch the game. It'll be interesting. I know the train's going to be nuts from Asbury Park going up to Long Branch and switching over from Long Branch going up to Newark Penn Station. Yes, that's where the stop is. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, you're not from New Jersey or New York City area, Prudential Center is a few blocks away from Newark Penn Station, and Newark Penn Station is separated by New York Penn Station by 24 minutes. Yes, 24 minutes. So halfway through, you do know this is the closest rivalry in just about any sports league. Yes, you got that right. Maybe the next closest might be the NFL, where technically the Jets and Giants play in the same football stadium. But really, it's more of a frenemy because you're both friends and enemies. But I digress from that. Maybe the MLS with New York City FC versus the New Jersey slash New York Red Bulls play in Harrison, where uh, New York FC plays right near Yankee Stadium. So really, it's one of those interesting things about living in the tri-state area that if you're living in Switzerland or Russia or wherever you are, maybe you're in a country like, let's say, oh, Honduras. I saw that some of you listeners are listening in from those countries, and I'm grateful that you're listening in. And I actually dig into those demographics because I like to get to see where everyone is listening from. And it's just a matter of time. Like, I know this podcast has been around more than 3 years. It feels like 4 to 5 years. I kind of feel old talking about it, and it makes me feel good because uh, I really feel good about putting out content and all this good stuff. And I did talk to one of my good buddies who has a source with the doubles and one of Elliot Freeman's 32 thoughts. If you go to number 10, I believe. So this is from sportsnet.ca from the 32 thoughts. It says Andrew Brunette's out in his contract for a head coaching job activates in the offseason, but the Devils have big plans in the meantime. So uh, I wrote to my buddy. He goes, as I just replied, Ruff still needs a contract. Does Brunette move up to head coach if Ruff moves up in the organization? And I said to my buddy, I said, interesting. I wanted to double check. He goes, yeah. And I said, so I wasn't crazy in December saying to Trey Matthews of the Locked On Devils podcast and Sam Wu of the Let's Go Devils podcast that it's better for Ruff and Brunette to get promoted within. And he replies, I mean, depends on what direction they want to go. And me thinking from a hockey ops standpoint, it would be a win-win for both the Devils, Lindy Ruff, and Andrew Brunette, because Brunette over the years he did coach the Florida Panthers uh, through the first round, but got mollywopped by the the Stanley Cup runner-up uh, Tampa Bay Lightning, who then lost to the Colorado Avalanche. And Brunette's been a blessing this season with the Devils. Like I said many times, improving the power play, improving the effectivity of the New Jersey Devils offense. And it just goes to show how much the Devils really believe in him, Lindy Ruff, and with the hiring recently last offseason of Ryan McGill from Vegas, the Devils have a lot of leadership from within. And if they do, I can see them promoting Sergei Brylin up to the bench and having Breland around would also bring that no BS attitude that really helps guys like Dawson Mercer and Nico Heischer, Jack Hughes keep level headed. I know I went off the cuff saying Eric Hala might just be an X factor besides Andre Palat. And these guys live for this time of year. They want to win. They don't want to sit back and relax, in the offseason thinking what Bruce Springsteen would say, talk about their glory days where everything's passing by now, glory days. You don't want to think about that. You want to think about winning this series in the first round. You want to complete your actions. You want to manipulate your opponent as much as you can. And one of the things that I see the Devils doing is blitzing the Rangers early, often in the series, and outpossessing them and pulling in positive penalties where the Devils go on the power play, guys like Timo Meier go to work and average at least a power play goal a game, because this is that time of year where your power play unit is massively important. And the Devils are going to need to move the puck around a little bit, but with their feet more. Because if you change lanes and you shoot a little different, you know, you want to keep that goalie off balance. But with that being said, have a wonderful evening. This is also going to be on YouTube, Anchor.fm, Transistor.fm. See you later.